There arrives a juncture in life, perhaps in your mid-20s, or after a particularly brutal heartbreak, a profound betrayal, the crushing weight of burnout, or simply after witnessing enough people reveal their authentic, often less than flattering, dispositions. At this pivotal moment, you reach a state where rudeness no longer surprises you. It ceases to be shocking when someone abruptly interjects, dismissively rolls their eyes, or delivers a subtly aggressive remark cloaked in the guise of a false smile. You've heard it all before, the biting sarcasm thinly disguised as quick wit, the unsolicited advice masquerading as genuine concern, the subtly disparaging comments that sound polite on the surface but carry a poisoned undertone. At some indefinable point, a fundamental truth begins to crystallize within you, a truth that no one imparted during your formative years. Not every skirmish is worth engaging in, and not every insult deserves the precious commodity of your energy. It is precisely then that Stoicism, not the cold, emotionless caricature that many mistakenly associate with it, but the profound and practical philosophy of real Stoicism, begins to emerge as a potent strategy for navigating life. It becomes a disciplined method for preserving the inviolable sanctuary you've painstakingly constructed within yourself. For when you finally grasp the liberating realization that inner peace is not something bestowed upon you by others, but rather a sacred state you must vigilantly fight to safeguard and uphold, everything undergoes a radical transformation. You cease to engage in the futile game of emotional tennis with individuals whose sole expertise lies in serving bitterness. You stop allowing every contemptuous remark to ensnare you like a fish on a hook. You halt the insidious leakage of your vital energy to those who, deep down, merely crave your reaction, understanding that your agitation is their very oxygen. In the place of these reactive outbursts, something profoundly new and unsettlingly quiet emerges. This newfound calm, paradoxically, rattles them far more profoundly than any shout ever could. This isn't because you are weak, on the contrary, it is because you have become too resilient to flinch, too centered to be swayed, and too self-aware to be dragged into the chaotic circus of their unresolved pain. As Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, sagely advised in his Meditations, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Because let's articulate it plainly, rudeness is rarely about you. It's fundamentally about control, about garnering attention, about asserting a perceived power, and most critically, it's about deep-seated insecurity. People do not attempt to diminish others because they are inherently strong, they do it because their own self-worth is running on fumes, their internal reservoirs of confidence are depleted. In that vast emotional emptiness, they lash out, they prod, they poke, fervently hoping that if they can provoke a reaction from you, it will somehow make them feel taller, more significant, more in control. This insidious pattern is a manifestation of their own inner turmoil, not a reflection of your character. As Epictetus taught, we are disturbed not by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens to us. The insult itself is inert, it gains power only when we grant it our assent. But here's the crucial twist, the strategic maneuver they never anticipate. When you resolutely refuse to react, when you respond with a tranquil precision instead of emotional chaos, you don't merely block their attack, you disarm the aggressor entirely. And this disarmament isn't achieved through violence, anger, or an urge for retribution. You achieve it through an unwavering presence, profound clarity, and a quiet, unyielding command over your own faculties. This is the profound gift of Stoicism, the unwavering ability to hold your ground, to perceive someone's insult not as a mirror reflecting your flaws, but as a clear projection of their own internal struggles. It's the capacity to deliver a single, impeccably timed sentence with such surgical calm that it slices through the surrounding noise, leaving nothing but a resounding silence in its wake. This entire discourse is precisely about this transformative philosophy and its practical application. This is not a compilation of clever comebacks designed to go viral or to make you appear intellectually sharp in front of an audience. This is about cultivating a deep philosophical practice, learning how to remain unperturbed and unmoving in a world that voraciously profits from your emotional reactions. It's about allowing rude individuals to inadvertently expose their own vulnerabilities and shortcomings without you having to lift a finger or expend a shred of your vital energy. Because genuine power, authentic power, doesn't engage in petty arguments, it doesn't shout to be heard, it doesn't desperately strive to prove its existence. It simply is. It resonates with a quiet authority that needs no external validation. As Seneca, another prominent Stoic, observed, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. True power is focused, internal, and unshakable. So, let us delve into the practical steps of how to attain this state of quiet fortitude. Let's explore the kind of strength that doesn't roar or demand attention, but simply stands, steadfast and immovable, and in that steadfastness, leaves the most vociferous people in the room feeling utterly dwarfed. 1. If you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder. That single, understated line, it's more than a mere statement, it's a silent, yet palpable, warning. It's the resonant echo of every time you have been broken, painstakingly rebuilt, and emerged sharper, more resilient. What your provocateurs fail to comprehend is that you have, in essence, trained for this. They mistakenly believe that a few cutting words will unravel your composure. They assume their sarcasm still possesses the corrosive power it once did. But they are aiming at a version of you that no longer exists, the version who absorbed every slight personally, who bled for external validation, who crumpled under the weight of judgment. That fragile version has been thoroughly buried. What stands in its place now is fireproof, forged in the crucible of past adversities. As Epictetus famously stated, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. You've undergone a profound internal metamorphosis, a true metanoia. This line doesn't deny the pain you've experienced, it acknowledges it implicitly, but signals that you've transcended it. So now, when someone endeavors to wound you with their lazy, uninspired barbs, you don't flinch. You allow them to swing wildly, and you meet their aggression with a subtle, knowing smile. That smile isn't a sign of ignorance, it's the quiet triumph of apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense, but the Stoic ideal of freedom from disturbing passions and emotional turmoil. They crave your anger, your messy reaction, your loud outburst, because if you're loud, they don't feel quite so alone in their own internal chaos. Instead, you confront them with an impenetrable quiet strength. You utter, If you're trying to hurt my feelings, you'll have to try harder, and then you calmly walk right past their emotional playground, leaving them bewildered and powerless. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is more agonizing to a petty person than the dawning realization that you are utterly immune to their toxic influence. That, truly, is the profound power of self-mastery and growth. 2. You're not on the level to get a reaction from me. This declaration doesn't just sting, it shatters. Not because it is cruel, but because it precisely delineates an unbridgeable chasm between your cultivated inner peace and their desperate need for external validation. It unequivocally tells them, I've built a sanctuary within myself, and it is not open for negotiations. You do not get to rattle what you did not construct. You do not get to poke the bear and expect a roar. Allow me to paint a vivid picture. I once worked with a colleague, let's call him Kevin. Kevin was the quintessential energy vampire, the type who meticulously constructed his own fragile ego by subtly undermining everyone else in the room. He was never overtly direct. Always cunning, perpetually hiding behind jokes that hit too low to be genuinely humorous. One day, I delivered a presentation. It was solid, lucid, and the entire room was fully engaged. Then came Kevin's predictable interjection. Interesting point, he drawled, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few people offered nervous chuckles. He preened, convinced he had scored a decisive hit. I met his gaze, looked him directly in the eye, and with complete equanimity, uttered, "You're not on the level to get a reaction from me." I didn't scream, I didn't retaliate with an even sharper retort, because I simply refused to stoop to his level. When you articulate this line, you're not merely dismissing them, you are powerfully elevating yourself. You are conveying, my internal tranquility is a fortress, inviolable and unassailable. This aligns perfectly with the Stoic emphasis on guarding your prohairesis, your faculty of moral choice and judgment, from external disturbances. Marcus Aurelius counseled, dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars, and see yourself running with them. Such an elevated perspective renders petty provocations utterly insignificant. Because here's what individuals like Kevin fail to comprehend: there are battles fought not with words, but with an unshakable inner composure. And sometimes, not reacting at all is the deepest, most profound form of power imaginable. So, the next time someone throws bait your way, someone who is desperately trying to climb onto your energy to feel taller, do not grab the hook. Simply look them in the eyes and calmly state, you're not on the level to get a reaction from me. 3. That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure. Now, this particular line isn't just a clever phrase, it's a precision instrument, a rhetorical scalpel that cuts exactly where it needs to. It dissects the very root of their aggression. Because the uncomfortable truth is that most rude people are not genuinely confident, they are merely loud. They aren't truly bold, they are utterly terrified. But instead of undertaking the difficult internal work necessary for genuine self-improvement, they wear sarcasm and cutting remarks like a flimsy crown, hoping to project an image of superiority. Allow me to set the scene, a networking event. I was enthusiastically sharing an idea. It was clear, sharp, and gaining tangible traction. Then, from seemingly nowhere, a guy I barely knew smirked and interjected, "Well, I guess confidence can make anything sound smart." The laugh he was desperately hoping for never materialized. Instead, people subtly shifted in their seats, sensing the awkwardness. He thought he was slick, but his bravado was a fragile facade, a desperate performance. I merely smiled, a slight, knowing curve of my lips, and with unflappable calm, replied, "That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure." The silence that followed was more eloquent than any defense or counterargument. Because here's the profound impact of this line: it doesn't label them as unintelligent, it strategically repositions the spotlight. Suddenly, the focus isn't on you or your idea, it's on their palpable fear, their overwhelming need for validation, their transparent performance. This line works because it fundamentally flips the narrative. You're no longer in a defensive posture, you are calmly, almost compassionately, holding up a mirror to their own reflection. And let's be utterly honest, individuals who throw words like knives expect you to bleed. But when you don't bleed, when you instead show them their own reflection, their own insecurity, instead of giving them the reaction they crave, that's a wound to their ego from which they rarely recover. That's the real, lasting burn. So, the next time someone makes a crude joke at your expense, don't get loud, don't become flustered. Just offer a gentle, almost sympathetic smile and say, "That was a lot of effort just to sound insecure." Then, let the silence resonate. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is make them truly hear themselves. Let's bring this discourse to a conclusive point. You've been erroneously conditioned by society to equate silence with weakness. To believe that not reacting is tantamount to submission. This pervasive myth needs to be dismantled. This entire philosophical approach teaches you that you do not need to react to every provocation. Because rude people, manipulative individuals, they thrive on chaos, they yearn to destabilize you, they aim to wrest control of the psychological terrain by making you lose yours. But not anymore. Now, your boundaries are fortified by unshakable composure. Now, your precious inner peace is protected by precisely chosen words, delivered with a calm, surgical precision. Now, your silence transforms into a potent strategic maneuver, not a sign of capitulation. These aren't merely clever phrases or catchy comebacks. They are the embodiment of a profound philosophical practice, a Stoic discipline in action. So, the next time someone steps out of line, whether it's with biting sarcasm, passive aggression, or a cheap, ill-conceived insult, you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to descend to their level of pettiness. You just need one clear, concise sentence, delivered like a blade wrapped in silk, swift, precise, and without unnecessary flourish. Then, with an air of dignified detachment, you walk away. Because you possess far better things to do with your invaluable time and energy than to wrestle with individuals who don't even respect themselves. This is the cultivation of virtue in action, wisdom in response, courage in self-restraint, and justice in refusing to perpetuate toxicity. This is the authentic movement of grounded power, of a silence that speaks infinitely louder than ego, of profound self-mastery.